As of my and this video's co-writer Josh's writing this video in August 2021, my most popular video is the short I made a few months ago on how many countries you can say the US technically actually borders. Basically in the short, I talked about the US's maritime borders, as can be more easily seen on this world map that someone evidently put in a microwave. The responses to the video were everything from people talking about American imperialism to saying how much the map hurt their eyes, and in particular, wait, what exactly are maritime borders? And I thought I could probably make a full video explaining what maritime borders are and how they matter in better detail. This is that video. This video is brought to you by Skillshare. So, in terms of jurisdiction, this is the United States, right? Wrong. You are wrong, and you should keep on watching this video because there's nothing wrong with not knowing this information, and we're not here to knowledge shame. Now, sure, this is the United States, but if you go to the beach and jump offshore and swim into the water, you might drown, but you would still be in the United States. And the reason people don't generally need to bring their passports to the beach is because of territorial waters. The US isn't special here, by the way, I'm just using it as an example country. Now, maritime borders aren't as cut and dry as land borders, probably mostly because they're in the water. You see, water territories have layers. To begin, we set the baseline at low tide. This is where a country's land territory officially ends and its water territory begins. The waters within are considered inland waters, lakes, rivers, ponds, swimming pools, etc., whereas everything out to 12 nautical miles from the baseline is classified as territorial sea. Out to 24 nautical miles we get the contiguous zone, and lastly is the exclusive economic zone, extending out to 200 nautical miles from the baseline, unless two nations' waters overlap each other, in which case they're either split down the middle or resolved in a treaty. Territorial sea is basically considered sovereign territory of a particular nation, much like its airspace. Though like its airspace, foreign ships, military or civilian, are generally allowed innocent passage in most cases. Yeah, I meant what I said. This remains especially true if these waters form an important corridor, like the Danish Straits for Russia, or the Turkish Straits for Russia, or the Danube for a bunch of other countries. Actually, considering the Danube and the Volga-Don Canal connecting the Caspian Sea to the Black Sea, the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles in Turkey are actually important to a lot more nations than just Russia. Well, I suppose you could just take the long way through the Rhine, but okay, we're getting sidetracked here. The contiguous zone is the start of international waters, though within it, a nation can still punish those who violate its laws. Within the exclusive economic zone, though, a nation still has full economic control and rights, but can't stop other nation ships from entering or passing through. Now, what laws do you follow outside a country's territorial waters or exclusive economic zone? Well, first off, no country is allowed to claim sovereignty over any part of what the United Nations considers the high seas, basically any water more than 370.4 kilometers from any coast. After this point, the nearest coastal country has no exclusive rights to the water. This doesn't mean the high seas are lawless though, as there are still rules every nation has to abide by to make the waters a friendlier place for all countries. If you were to commit a crime at sea in national waters, like smuggling boats or hijacking illegal goods, the justice system would consider that felony to have been committed inside the country. Move about 370.4 kilometers out from the shore and leave the EEZ though, and here if you commit a crime at sea, no country is immediately responsible, rather it comes down to which nations own the vessels, and which countries the owners come from. In certain cases, this can make prosecuting someone very difficult since it's hard to say, well, the crime was committed in this country, therefore this country's laws apply. There are laws and regulations on the high seas though, namely regarding mining and the fishing of protected species. For a while, the high seas have almost been a fish whatever you want as long as it's not endangered zone. But in 2015, the United Nations set out to enforce stricter rules for fishing in international waters. The same goes for mining and oil extraction. In a sense, all countries are equal. You can basically do what you want, but you're also responsible for any damage caused. So why exactly do these borders matter? Although it largely comes down to legal aspects, maritime borders are still vastly useful for determining other issues. You have to travel back in time a bit to understand why and how maritime borders came to be. Nations started to build large naval vessels and industrialize the sea in the early 20th century. Britain and Germany building ambitiously large navies, you know the deal. At that time in history, the laws regarding the seas were a bit of a mess, and disputes were solved on a case-by-case basis, and often won by whoever had the bigger stick. But as international shipping expanded, with dozens of countries industrializing and shipping cargo and passengers around the world, not to mention mining or fishing or doing science, rigid laws had to be set in place so no nation could overstep a boundary. When it comes to the high seas, those are mainly determined by the United Nations, and that works for most of the world given that most countries are part of the United Nations. National waters are more complex and depend on treaties between countries. Ultimately, it's a question of how we use the waters assigned to us. In a sense, waters in a nation's exclusive economic zone are more like that of a nation's aquatic resource tiles. Places where a particular nation, and only that particular nation, can freely fish, navigate, mine, and do whatever else a country might want to do within their laws but out in the sea. The lines may be somewhat arbitrarily drawn, but they do have real effects on the wider world. One famous instance happening a few decades ago in the Sea of Okhotsk. Russia entirely surrounds this sea, but because everything is huge and far apart up there, that didn't mean it technically owned the whole sea. Because the EEZ boundaries didn't extend far enough, there was this gap in the middle of the sea, nicknamed the Peanut Hole, which was beyond Russia's EEZ and which other nations exploited to gain supplies of fish in the Sea of Okhotsk, including China, Japan, South Korea, and even Poland, the mad lads honestly, which, even though they were only fishing in this small area, spelled huge conservation issues in the rest of the sea. These countries did agree to temporarily stop fishing in this area in 1993 for the pollock populations to rebound, though eventually, by 2014, the UN agreed to consider the area part of Russia's continental shelf. Making the seas a friendly and beneficial place for every nation all the time is never going to be an attainable goal, since there will always be a certain amount of greed and arrogance, and a good deal of boundary disputes. The least the United Nations can do is create a universal system for every country with access to the sea or international waterways, and then nail down the specific laws for what you can and cannot do in each zone, and hope everyone agrees. Yeah, good luck with that. This video was brought to you by Skillshare, one of the biggest online learning communities of 2021. Millions of people already use Skillshare, and it's one of the most impressive learning websites out there, with detailed high-quality tutorials taught by some of the best and most well-known experts in their fields. Skillshare has a nearly perfect rating on the App Store, and is specifically curated to teaching you everything from graphic design to music production to managing a YouTube channel. The latter is taught here in this course by Marcus Brownlee. I mean, it seems to be working well enough for him. Skillshare even gives you the option to teach a class yourself if you have a skill you want to share. Go to the video description and click on the promo link and use the coupon code KHANUBIS to get a 2-month free trial of Skillshare Premium to start your journey, but only if you're one of the first 1,000 people to do so. Good luck, and I'll see you there.